This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Hey, Place to Be Nation, Adam Murray here, one half of the NBA team. We are now to our official Gone Fishing episodes. This is the episode 1. We will be discussing the first round failures of the playoffs of the Eastern Conference. We'll be doing a little Orlando, a little Brooklyn, a little Indiana, and a little Detroit. So enjoy the show.
Drive behind his back, throws it down. Oh, man. Big part of this, Aaron getting it to the other side of the rim. DJ on the drive, behind the back, and the flush. Oh, man. Some good stuff.
Adam, the Orlando Magic, just enough. Wait a minute. Orlando made the playoffs?
I know, it's confusing to everybody, including Orlando.
Playoffs? You know, as you and I, as Saints fans, we can always appreciate the great Jim Morris Sr. But yes, the Orlando Magic under Steve Clifford as the first-year head coach actually made the NBA playoff. They had a 42-4. This wasn't one of those phantom playoff appearances where they were like 8 games under 500. They were 42-40.
I know, and it was always like it was the joke that, you know, oh, you're playing Orlando, then Orlando would win. Then all of a sudden,
the January sloth would come. Yeah.
And it just never came. However, they were always like, oh, you know, this team played, you know, San Antonio and won, and then they lost at Orlando. Mm-hmm. Huh? Oh, Milwaukee, they beat Golden State and then lost to Orlando. So there was just a lot of just weird going on down there. And like, you look at the roster, you look at the stats, and it's just like, it doesn't add up how they made the playoffs other than just, you know, a really bad East.
Yeah, well, not only that, like, this was probably, we always talk about injuries and how they affect teams. This was probably one of the teams that avoided injuries for the most part, where everybody played maximum effort. You felt like they overachieved when you watched them play, especially at the point guard spot with DJ Augustin.
They didn't have a point guard.
That's what I'm trying to say.
they didn't, and it was just.
I'm glad you made that point, because, you know, this kind of gets us to the premier players on the team, is that I think Aaron Gordon is a point forward. I think he's actually miscast in Orlando. I think they need to actually use him more as like as a distributor for the team, kind of in the same vein as like Joe Ingles is in Utah and Draymond Green is at Golden State. What do you think of that?
I don't know what he is. It was just, you know, there was a log jam with Biyombo, and then you have, you know, Vucevic, who made the All-Star team. Mm-hmm. It was really good and the best player on the team. And, you know, Fournier was also there.
Yeah, I mean, he averaged 15 points and three assists. I mean,
he didn't justify that contract, but.
No, but we're kind of getting to that point where it levels off, and a contract like $17 million, you know, doesn't sound horrible.
He's there. He is who he is. He'll give you what he gives. It's just, he didn't make that leap. And then.
Do you feel like they need to make a focus on Gordon over Vucevic if they can't convince Nikola Vucevic to re-sign?
Well, I don't know. It's a matter of making him re-sign. It's a matter of somebody's going to give him the max. Somebody's going to give him a ton of money, and can they really afford to re-sign him, considering they already drafted his replacement in Bamba?
Here's the trick. They're at $85 million. And the biggest problem that Rob Hennigan had was the fact that they always seem to be right at the salary cap, and the team was terrible, which neither you nor I could ever make sense of. Now they're kind of with their new management that they're sort of back to normal, but they're at $85 million in cap projected, and this is before the Vucevic deal, if they do make a deal with Vucevic. So if you sign Vucevic to max, now you're at the salary cap. and you don't really have a lot of room to grow. You probably don't have any money left for Terrence Ross. You'd probably have to get like a smaller deal to get a guard. And then you just have to say a prayer that Markelle Fultz and Mo Bamba and Jonathan Isaac all kind of grow together.
Well, Bamba was the raw talent who didn't really know how to do anything that we thought he was.
Yeah, I don't want to throw away Markelle Fultz. That was a big part of what happened in the trade deadline. But the thing is, Fultz didn't play at all.
That was basically they drafted him as their point guard of the future, so it didn't really hurt to take a flyer on him. Isaac, I'm not impressed by.
Well, I'll tell you this: Steve Clifford loves Jonathan Isaac. He basically starts him.
He does, but is this a 6'10" small forward like?
Yeah, they play him at the 3 a lot. That's true. And then they play Gordon at the 4, but he passes. It's kind of isn't it? Do you get what I'm trying to say about the Magic when I watch them and how kind of like how funky they are?
I'll put it this way about the Magic. Steve Clifford was brought in, well, because Charlotte had enough of him, but he was brought in to change the culture. Mm-hmm. That was all he was meant to do. They had losing. They had horrible coaches before him, just clueless coaches, just coaches that had no right of being there, who didn't develop them. Vogel was in over his head last year, but prior to him, those picks. But they needed somebody to change, to sort of right the ship and be like, look, we need a direction. Here's a direction. We need to start thinking about winning. We need a culture, complete just change. And then everybody, to their credit, everybody bought in, and with everybody being healthy, the rotations were easily set.
Their defense was so much better this year. Not even close. 5th in points allowed and 8th in efficiency. They were not even remotely close to that under Jacques Vaughn and Scott Skiles, and who am I missing that was before that?
Jacques Vaughn.
No, there was another one after Scott Skiles, and I'm totally blanking on who it was. Oh, Frank Vogel, the new head coach of the LA Lakers. Oh, Jesus. Do you have anything to say about that one, or you want to wait for the...
This is the Orlando one, and
okay.
like we said, they overachieved, and this was just the start. Eventually, you had to turn around this all came from Dwight Howard leaving, and that void he created was huge. Mm-hmm. And Hennigan just tried to dig his way out of the hole, and
he just kept losing and losing and losing and he started mixing bad signings with it. Augustin was a bad signing. I know that he played well in that one game that they won against the Raptors, but Augustin was a bad signing. You can't convince me otherwise.
They all were bad signings, and it was just amazing that somebody was able to take Biyombo.
Yeah. A big reason why they're at that $85 million mark is because of Timothy Mozgov. He's got one more year left at $16 million. I don't see a buyout there, but do you think there's potential?
There's just a trade deadline buyout. If you can make some numbers work, you can move him somewhere else. But
in that case, then you can get some help if you re-sign Vucevic. That could make sense without dipping into the tax if you're able to make the numbers work. Do you pick up the team option on Michael Carter-Williams?
Not really, because what did he do there for you?
He averaged 4 assists.
He was there, and his bad habits continue.
Rookie of the year, Michael Carter-Williams. I always have to say that. Kem Birch, he's a restricted free agent. Is this one of those Chris Copeland situations where if they don't have his bird rights, so if a team pays even slightly above his average salary, then the Magic can't keep him?
It'll be one of those creative signings, but I don't think he was that good he was a nice steal.
He played a lot. He played just like everybody in Orlando. They were always there because they never sat, because they never got injured.
He was able to, that was a great Orlando find, but however, I don't see teams being like, we need to have that guy be part of our rotation. We need to overpay to get him in. I think teams are like, well, we can find somebody just as good as him through our channels.
Are you finally looking up on Orlando for the first time in a while?
No, I think...
You're still looking down?
No, they overachieved, and we should be all glad for that. They found them in the playoffs again. We should be glad for that. However, I don't know what this is just year one. This is year one of them righting the ship. So
actually being relevant, actually being somewhat relevant.
I'm going to give them a pass.
I'm
going to give them a flyer. Let them have it. Let's see what they do.
What they need, I mean, they need a point guard. You would hope that Markelle Fultz is the guy. What they desperately need is points in the paint, and they need somebody who can attack to the free throw line. Vucevic is not that kind of player. He's kind of passive. He's an all-star, but he's passive. You need someone who can attack at the rim, at the 3 spot.
That's what they need Terrence Ross to do, and he didn't do it.
That's not him. I would just let Ross walk. Let him go to the Grizzlies or wherever he wants to go.
Yeah, they need just an old school slasher.
Mm-hmm.
They need to get the Wayback Machine, get Rudy Gay.
Yeah, old Rudy Gay, like Memphis Grizzlies Rudy Gay.
Yes.
I like that one.
Russell, on a string. D'Angelo Russell yo-yos that dribble and a beautiful fake NJ.
I don't know, but that pull back, and he just does it with such ease. Like to be able to come off, pull back, and then shoot a 3.
Adam, the Brooklyn Nets, your Brooklyn Nets. Tell me, let's try to explain why in the history of the NBA Team podcast I have to describe them as your Brooklyn Nets.
Because I was right about them.
Well, no, you've been talking about how right you were going to be about them for like years and years until they were actually decent, and then you said you were finally right.
No, I said they're a terrible team, but they're doing it the right way. They're figuring, here's our system. We don't have players for our system, but we're going to keep doing it.
And they were dealt a terrible hand from the trade with the Celtics.
Which was the old regime, and B, the old money. Once the new money came in, oh man, it threw everything away. So instead, they're like, well, we don't have hope. Let's just be, we'll take your garbage. And they did, and they turned that garbage into Karis LeVert, and they turned it into D'Angelo Russell, and they turned, Joe Harris, and...
Well, Joe Harris, I think they acquired in free agency, but he was sort of like a throwaway from Cleveland. Am I right or wrong?
He was like a veteran minimum almost.
Yeah, but then he turned out to be like a great 3-point shooter. He actually won. Did he win the 3-point contest against Steph Curry? I know that some people would take no stock into that, but when you can outshoot Steph Curry in a session, you're a pretty good shooter.
See, but that's the thing. And then they make smart, free, they didn't give away bad contracts. Then you start bringing in people like Dudley and Davis and Napier, just people who have playoff experience. Somebody who can coach these young kids and keep them, straight and narrow. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, bam, there's this playoff team.
Yeah, Kenny Atkinson was the coach. Sean Marks. I will say one funny thing that happens, that Sean Marks went into the referee's room and complained about calls, and he got suspended for a game. What is the effect of a general manager being suspended for a game? I don't get that.
It's just a pay.
Like, what does the general manager do during a game? I'm really asking.
Absolutely
do they just
nothing.
watch and listen?
They do absolutely nothing, but I think it was just more of, we need to fine you. And that's a way for them to be like, look, this is we can't fine him because, well, technically he doesn't have a job. So if he wanted to walk wherever he wants, he's the GM, but we're going to hold that paycheck from you. But whatever, we're detracting from this team.
Coached by Kenny Atkinson. It felt like a team that last year they were playing a super fast pace, and their offense was not efficient at all, but they scored a bunch of points because of the pace, and they took a lot of threes. They still took a lot of threes, and they rebounded the ball really well, but it felt like they were sort of meeting in the middle. Like, instead of trying to focus too much on offense, they focused a little more on defense, and then it turned into a somewhat efficient defense and an offense that was not as good as the year before, but effective enough to, make comebacks and get on a run and pull out some wins. And they wound up with a 42-40 season, lost in 5 games to the Philadelphia 76ers.
Well, they won a game against the 76ers, sort of shocked them.
They dominated that game 1. That was funny.
Yeah, and then, I was like, yeah, I wasn't surprised by it because they had nothing to lose. We're going all out. Then you were like, well, then, the real team stood up, and then they got obviously whooped, but they got there through, we'll take Damari Carroll And then the first two, they got the first and the second round pick from him, and that's when they got Kuruks and Sawa. Sawa was injured, so he didn't play. But those two guys, young people, looks like they could start building around. Karis LeVert could start building around him.
Yeah.
And
the ones I love are Karis LeVert and Jared Allen. I think those are staples for the next 4 or 5 years.
Jared Allen, solid pick, and just signings.
You're gonna laugh at me, but you know who LeVert does remind me a little bit of? He reminds me of Kawhi Leonard. A little bit. He's like a mini Kawhi Leonard. Jared Allen is Rudy Gobert. He's Rudy Gobert.
They both need to develop, so we need to sort of figure that out.
D'Angelo Russell is going to be a restricted free agent. He was an all-star, had a really good year, 21 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, almost 3 3-pointers made per game, 1.2 steals. Just a great year. But now's the time to make a decision. They did not sign an extension for him before Halloween. Or before the season started. What do we do now? Where do we go with D'Angelo Russell? Do they try to make a deal happen before midnight or right at midnight on July 1st, or do they wait it out for an offer sheet that they have to match?
They have to wait for somebody to max them. That's
Okay.
the problem, is there's too many teams out there with money. So what would prevent a Clippers, what would prevent a Spurs, a Suns, or a Magic, or even, let's say, Chicago Bulls?
Okay.
We're gonna max him out. We like him. Crap! Now we're forced.
Well,
to sign
that's
him.
the problem. That's the problem with offer sheets, kind of in totality, is that you are rewarding another team's stupidity. But the truth is, by matching it, you're saying that you feel that deal is fair. But in truth, what it is the value is probably greater. That the price is greater than the actual value of the player, but the player is so valuable to you that you cannot let that man go. So that's where that comes in.
Yeah, sort of like, Otto Porter when Brooklyn maxed him
That
out.
was, we'll call a spade a spade. That was a situation where they just should have let it walk.
Washington talked themselves into it.
Zach LaVine with the Kings.
$20 million, they talked themselves into it. And that's what's going to happen, is he's going to get maxed by somebody. And then, we don't have a backup point guard or prospects for a backup point guard. So unless, Kyrie chooses them over the Knicks, then you have to sort of hope on that. So if they do get a superstar point guard, then just, hey, thumbs up to you. But they're stuck with making decisions. Like Ed Davis was, he's been a glue guy everywhere, and he doesn't provide numbers.
He averaged 8 rebounds a game and shot 61% from the field.
And plays like 18 minutes. Mm-hmm. He's extremely efficient for his short time, but he just provides those intangibles. And then, Jared Dudley, his contract, he makes too much money to justify his poor on-court numbers. But
Alan Crabb, if he hasn't already, is going to use his player option of $18.5 million. Now, they have the room there. They have $48 million, which includes the opt-in for Alan Crabb. So do you do the buyout like they did with Dwight Howard when they basically were shuffled his contract?
Well, they just said, we'll pay the whole thing. We don't care. We can absorb it.
Kenneth Faried, they sort of bought, 3 out of the 4, three quarters out of the dollar, pretty much, to get rid of him.
Yeah. So there's no real future for him. But the point is, now they're coming to hard decisions. Are they going to try to be like, we have money now for the first time in, who knows how long?
We might be an attractive destination, which is the first time ever.
But are you going to then start foolishly spending your money, being like, we're attracted that we need to bulk up and have our team be good all of a sudden? Well, now you're stuck with a bloated team. So they have a lot of questions coming up. So
moment of truth for him, because he's a restricted free agent. How do you feel about Rondae Hollis-Jefferson?
I'm not high on him at all.
I mean, maybe he's like the curse. It's the curse of the 3-name man, like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist with the Charlotte Hornets. So
what's your hashtag for them?
I've always compared him to the hashtag for Brooklyn. I have is hey Bay. BAE. And I don't mean biannual exception. I mean that they actually are in a situation where they might be able to woo over people. That's a weird situation for them. You just hope they don't screw it up.
And then that's why I chose started from the bottom. Now we're here. They
Yep.
they had a long road to get out, and now all of a sudden, now you have money. Now you have your picks back. Go have at it.
I will say I saw some G League highlights of him. I know that you could take that with a great grain of salt. Rodion Caruch is actually pretty good, so you got to keep an eye on him.
Place to be Nation Pop feed. There's a lot going on right now. You can check Talkin' Pop. They're back with Kim and Jenny. They're joined by Stephen Kelly from Song with Friends for a special Swapcast episode. Got a lot going on there. Andy Atherton welcomes Jennifer Smith into Laughing Theater to talk about Dumb and Dumber. The hard-traveling fanboys deliver an installment of Countdown looking at the Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. And us here at the NBA team, we got a lot coming up. We got the draft preview, we got the draft, we got a free agency, we have a lot more Gone Fishins for you. So tune in to all that. Lots of good stuff. Back to the show.
So wait to see if Irving comes off with a high school goal. He back cut.
He missed it. Oladipo the rebound. 9 seconds, 8 seconds, 7 seconds. Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got it!
Another one!
Oladipo!
Another one! You can see it in the air.
Victor Oladipo has given the Pacers a 1-point lead.
What a heck of a win by this Pacers team. Back-to-back games, and you beat the Celtics. Arguably the best team, or been talked about as the best team in the East. Victor Oladipo, this is your city.
What a win.
Adam, everything was going really swell for the Indiana Pacers, and then Victor Oladipo got injured.
Yep,
how did
a
you feel
ruptured
about
quad
that?
will do that for you.
Oh, God, a ruptured quad. At first, when we were talking, I thought it was like a kneecap injury, but I just remember it being very, very ugly. Like one of those ones where, you know, the moment, like Gordon Hayward, like the moment you see it, you're like, oh, that's not good. You know? Do you think that he had any chance of coming back this year?
No, that window was completely closed, and the team, you know, for their credit, they picked up Wesley Matthews off the scrap heap and managed to sort of stay close to 500 and sort of just tread water until, you know, they hit the playoffs and we have no superstar. When we go cold, there's no one to get us out of that cold funk.
Their leading scorer was Bojan Bogdanovic. And I'm not trying to disrespect Bogdanovic. He had a career year at 18 points and 4 rebounds, but that is your dude. If that is your top player, then that's not good.
And that's the problem is, you know, Bogdanovic is one of many where the whole team was like, we're going to get people who just play as a team. We're going to get, you know, nobody's better than anybody else. We're just going to get people. And now they're all free agents this year. Their big signing of Tyreek, who didn't work out at all. He didn't.
Yeah, he did average 10 points, but he wasn't an assist guy. He didn't really.
But he only played 20 minutes, and he was brought in to sort of be a sixth man.
You're right. He didn't make a ginormous impact. Corey Joseph was about the same. He's a free agent, along with the other starting point guard, Darren Collison. That's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens. Miles Turner, blossoming big man. So is Domantas Sabonis. That's one part of the whole lineup with the Pacers that they don't have to worry about, is that they're pretty set at the front court.
And then Thaddeus Young, also a free agent, and he's like Derek Favors. Like, is he ever going to show us anything else, or is he just he is who he is?
I think you were talking about Thaddeus Young or somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thaddeus Young is what he is. Like, he's a shockingly good defensive player laterally, and he can do he can get some rebounds. But as a scorer, he's pretty much peaked, and he's at his point in his career. I think you want to say he's at least in his late 20s. Am I right, or is he in his early 30s?
I think he's late 20s.
Yeah, where like he's not going to get better than what he is. So whatever he can get out of it, this is kind of like Andre Iguodala when he signed with the Warriors, where whatever you can get out of this next contract, that's about the most that you're going to get.
And that was the problem with the Pacers, is that they had no shooters on this team. Bogdanovic was like the only guy, and
which was weird because they were 5th in 3-point percentage, but they were second to last in 3-pointers made under Nate McMillan. Just a very, very slow team, a team that didn't get to the free throw line much. That number was obviously slanted by not having Oladipo, because Oladipo just ate people for dessert at the free throw line.
Exactly, and basically the franchise hinges upon Oladipo.
Mm-hmm.
If he can't come back to what he was, they're completely screwed. I mean, they're not completely, because I think he only has like 1 year left on his contract after next year.
2021.
So they're not, it's not like not like John Wall where you're, okay, Supermax is kicking in, you have taken a year off, or, you just signed a 4-year deal and you're out. They have an out after a while. It's just, you've built your team basically on tier B players, and all your tier Bs are coming gone.
And a good team defense. Yeah.
A good team defense. And with a lot of teams having money, they're going to pick apart this team. Bogdanovich is going to get paid by somebody. Somebody's going to talk themselves into Tyreek being old Tyreek.
Some playoff team is going to think that Thaddeus Young is the missing piece.
Yeah. Which, as a small ball 4, not necessarily a bad choice.
No, even small potatoes like Kyle Quinn, maybe they can keep him. That's actually in the realm of possibility. But my hashtag was, where have all the Pacers gone? Because I feel the same way you do. I feel like, we always talk about the Super Bowl curse, where when you win a Super Bowl, they start picking apart your free agents. Like, I feel like with the Pacers, even though they got swept in the first round, that this is exactly what's going to happen to them. They're going to have a lot of guys wind up departing elsewhere, and they're just going to have to remake the team around a central cast that they're able to maintain in Oladipo, Turner, and Sabonis. So that's the most important
McDermott.
part. Doug McDermott. But and then there's Aaron Holiday, Edmund Sumner, T.J. Leaf. I think the jury is still out on all three of those players. Whereas with Doug McDermott, they just wanted a shooter. He didn't really provide that too much. He averaged 7 points a game.
No, and they also need a point guard now because Collison, he's below average.
Yeah, I mean, he's at a point. I think he's sort of hit the peak of his career was probably either the time he was with the Clippers or when he was with the Kings, and now we're sort of at that point where he's kind of dipping below what he was. He did average 6 assists per game, so maybe they can re-sign Corey Joseph and let Collison walk. That actually is not something that I would.
But they need to upgrade that, and then they need a shooter.
Now they do have the room, because if you include all of the opt-outs, then including Thaddeus Young, that's $57 million in cap space. So they can make it work. They've got a lot of cap room. Do you think Bogdanovich will be the number one target?
He should be.
Wesley Matthews, what's the chance of him becoming the new backup to Victor Oladipo?
Pretty good, because I don't see much of a market for him anywhere.
He played well in the playoffs. I'll say that.
He played well. He played decent. It's just he's not gonna, he's just a sad replacement.
Yeah, but offensively, definitely need some improvements. Maybe they can find something in the draft. Hope that Holiday sort of blossoms as a shooter in summer league. See what happens there. Outside of that, I think the real money there is Turner and Sabonis. If those guys can come together and blossom, now you got a really good team. And
they kind of need to hit a home run in the draft.
Yeah, but the problem is they're really not in a position to, unless they find a real diamond in the rough. That's what's going to have to happen.
They sort of can't play it safe. I think they need a third component. They need somebody who can do it for them. They can't just be like, we'll hit a single.
Well, that's the thing. That smells like a trade, and because of so much free agency, they're going to have to do a lot of acquiring, and they're not going to be able to do the trades until the acquisitions have kind of played themselves out into January and February. So it's sort of wait and see. I feel like as much changes as we're going to see from the Pacers in July, there's going to be even more changes after that, if that makes any sense.
Griffin with the basketball. Takes the pass. Throws it down. throws it down. The crowd erupts.
Adam, John Beeline did not take the Detroit Pistons job. He wound up going to the Cavaliers. But Dwayne Casey did take the Detroit Pistons job, and they actually made the playoffs. Now, this ain't the first time in the last few years that they did make the playoffs. They made it 1 year under Stan Van Gundy. You felt like they overachieved. I felt like they were kind of the team that I expected them to be. Very uninspiring first-round exit against the Bucks. I got nothing on this team. You know what? Just take control.
All right, you sort of mentioned the point is they completely did overachieve. This is a team that really has no direction, no excitement. You have bloated contracts everywhere.
Blake Griffin.
They were
I have a cough.
12th in overall D, 3rd in defensive putbacks. They have a coach, and it wasn't just Stan Van 3000, just sort of, I need to overpay people to come here. We'll figure it out later. They have a coach there. They have a system. Did we really expect them to make the playoffs? No, we really didn't. Another point we seem to forget is Drummond's only 25.
He's extremely young, but he's been through a lot. How many coaches has he been through now?
He's been through a lot, and the whole thing was, can Blake and Drummond work? And it did.
Mm-hmm.
He averaged 17 and 15 with 1.7 steals and blocks a game.
That's good. That
really
is
really.
But can I ask a question? If you have a really good center like that, how are you still second to last in the league in blocks?
Because he's the only one blocking.
I mean, they got no protection after that. Their height, they're third in height because of thanks to people like Luke Kennard's sort of an oversized guard, and Blake Griffin is an oversized power forward, and Drummond, of course, is mammoth. But outside of that, I don't see anything other than maybe defense where the Pistons really wow you in anything. It's all very blah. Especially
That's the thing is they're a defensive team,
they're so bad. Yeah.
It wasn't exactly exciting, and the Glenn Robinson, that signing didn't do too well. He didn't do anything.
Langston Galloway didn't move the needle. Ish Smith was okay.
Wayne Ellington was the only one who really sort of did anything, and
he came in from the Heat. Am I right, in a trade?
Yeah.
Who went over in that trade? I'm losing it. Was it Henry Ellenson?
Ellenson just got straight up cut.
Yeah, Reggie Bullock wound up going to the Lakers. So I don't know what they got in return for that.
Wasn't the Reggie Bullock thing
was that Thon Maker, or was that
was that the three-way, a multi-trade? I
do like how they got Thon Maker. Thon Maker showed a little bit of moxie, 5 points, 3 rebounds, 1 block. I think he's got a bit of a future. I just wish that
Wayne Ellington was not traded.
Okay.
He was part of the Tyler Johnson trade.
Oh,
and
okay.
Phoenix just cut him, and then he decided to go there. So that was a solid pickup on Detroit's part. And again, say what you want, they did overachieve. What's his name was finally healthy.
Reggie Jackson.
You knew who I was talking about.
Yeah,
he was healthy.
He's never healthy. That's why.
And then they were sort of his name was in the trades for the Conley sweepstakes.
Mm-hmm.
So
$18 million a year, we're now getting to a point with ascending salaries where you're because a lot of these contracts that were signed in 2016, they're at that point where you're at ascending deals, and they're getting to that last year where $18 million, to be honest, Adam, doesn't sound that bad for a good guard. Am I right or wrong?
Well, he's not good. It's just that 1 year he sort of, the stats don't show it, but he really did play better this year, and you could flip him for something better. And that's the problem, is what can you flip with this roster? They got rid of Stanley Johnson for Thon Maker because, Thon has some upside.
Finally gave up on Stanley Johnson.
He's developing. Stanley Bullock, who I thought was good, and I thought he had a home. He was nice and cheap. They just jettisoned him to the Lakers because he had no future with them. So it's just, I have no idea what the Pistons can do to just improve because, they they got, who was their pick last year? Grayson Allen?
No, well, Bruce Brown was one of them, but he played pretty well.
He was their second-round pick who did play pretty well.
Yeah, and then Kyrie Thomas was the other second-round pick. I don't think they had a first-round pick, to be honest with you.
Where's Grayson Allen at?
Grayson Allen's with Utah.
Luke Kennard?
Luke Kennard was from the 2017 draft.
Then I'm thinking of Luke Kennard.
Luke Kennard's okay.
I'm getting white Duke
Oh,
players
you're
mixed up.
you're getting the selfish white Duke shooters all wrong. Does John Lewis get stretched?
How many years does he have left?
1 year, but $9 million.
That's not terrible. Plus, they need size.
John Lewis is a waste, Adam. He does.
No, a
barely
waste was
play.
Henry Ellenson drafting him, and then just keep him in the D League for 2 years and just flat out
by the
cutting
way,
him.
with Stanley Johnson, Henry Ellenson, that is 2 second-round picks. You are saying bye-bye to. I mean, what does that say about Stan Van Gundy?
Stanley Johnson was a lottery pick. He was 8th overall.
I'm telling you, it's bad. It's bad. I mean, that's 2 back-to-back first-round picks that just did not work out
Well,
at all.
Stanley Johnson, we thought was a safe pick.
At the time, because he had that strong body. Now it just turned out he's just
Not good at anything.
a linebacker who can't play basketball. But former Pelican Stanley Johnson too. But I mean, there's obviously room for improvement here, especially on the offensive end. Dwayne Casey's weird. Sometimes he likes to focus on defense. Sometimes we would see a year in Toronto where they like really upped the offense, but that was a whole nother personnel where he was able to bend the styles depending on DeRozan and Kyle Lowry and all those other guys that they had. This is Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond. So what do you do here?
So with Casey having another year under his belt, he can sort of get a system down as opposed to always mix and matching people because there's no real. What do I have? Oh, Blake's out. I need to move the roster around again. This guy's inefficient. There's going to might be some rotation, some sort of fixtures. I don't know what they could do. I assume your hashtag is yes. Detroit also has a team.
My hashtag is lockdown. Because they are right over the cap. They're not in the tax. They're at $112 million, but they don't really have a lot of room to do much. There's not real incentive to do much after that. It's pretty much they're pretty much stuck with. They're kind of like the Eastern version of Utah. They're kind of stuck with what they've got, and you've got this looming supermax coming up with Blake Griffin on the way that he's going to opt into by 2022. All the way into 2022. So, you got a lot. There's just a lot of trepidation there. My biggest question is: does Andre Drummond opt out of $28 or $29 million in 2020?
No, probably not. Unless
does he just become so unhappy that he wants to leave?
I don't think I was so unhappy. It's just he'd obviously trade that in for a friendlier deal for like 3 or 4 years, but. I don't think he's going to get, $29 million for 1 year. I don't think it's going to offset 3 or 4 years in the future.
Yeah, but for the Pistons, just same old, and yeah, that's it.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have over 24 podcasts available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com. We now offer them to you on 2 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed, we dive into topics running the gamut from today's WWE to the glory days of yesteryear and the ins and outs of the territory days. In addition to our full-length shows, we also deliver to you special pod blasts on topics old and new.
The Place to Be Nation Pop feed is a veritable treasure trove of great content. Offer tremendous shows covering the land of movies, television, life, comics, and sports, brought to you by the most knowledgeable and insightful folks in the podcast world.
You can find all these great shows, plus archives of our past podcasts from over the past 8 years as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth search projects, and much more. Be sure to support our site by using www.PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when doing your online shopping. And we want to thank our friends at Boneheads Wing Bar, ProWrestlingOnly.com, and TheHistoryOfWrestling.com as well. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop